In relation to this tax bill, we see the government bring down a budget of broken promises. The promise not to raise GST is obviously broken by this bill. The promise to make everybody better off is broken by inflation and the skewing of this tax package to the wealthy who need it not. The promise to protect the elderly and restore superannuation pre-funding has been broken. The promise to protect frontline services and the funding of entitlements that public New Zealand expected under the previous government has been broken. And the promise to rebalance the economy and put it on a sustainable path to growth has been broken by the Treasury's own calculations. Mr. Speaker, we will prove all of these things in this third reading of the debate. Mr. Speaker, I guess at this stage in the proceedings, some people over there will be feeling a bit in need of a Barocca. They'll be feeling that the champagne's kind of worn off after this orgy of self-congratulation last night, and they'll be feeling like a lot of New Zealanders, tell me again how this budget leaves me better off. Well, Mr. Speaker, the Labour opposition can tell New Zealanders how it won't leave them better off, and here's the first reason. Because 6% inflation will deal to the small crumbs that fell from the rich folks' table in short order. And middle New Zealand will see no benefit from this budget until at least 2012-2013. And we believe New Zealanders will be worse off in the medium term because those upper income tax cuts are funded in part by extra debt, extra borrowing. And that Minister of Finance has the nerve, has the gall to lecture the Labour Party about fiscal prudence. He is borrowing more to give tax cuts to the wealthy while old people go without. He should be ashamed. Mr. Speaker, inflation will feed into mortgage rises and interest rate rises. And if there's one sure way to kill off a recovery, as we all know, it is to raise interest rates. Alan Bollard's job just got harder, and New Zealanders will pay for it. Mr. Speaker, while it's okay that the middle income brackets got some income tax relief, and you can bet Labour would have done that too, Mr. Speaker, and raised tax thresholds, as our leader has already said. What is not okay, and what members on this side cannot see past, is the fact that for somebody on $1 million a year, they get $1,000 extra in a week in the hand that they do not need and did not ask for. They will spend it on the economy. Well, the member says they'll spend it, and his leader says they'll save it. Would somebody please pass the key lines to Tau Henare, because he's off the song sheet again. Same to you with bells on. Mr. Speaker, underneath all of that is the underlying agenda that National is proposing of shrinking the state progressively over time. By strangling the revenue flows, they will then say to New Zealanders, you will have to do without the services that you counted on. You will not have as much, as my colleague Grant Robertson pointed out, for the paper and the crayons in your son and daughter's school, let alone their preschool. There will not be the money for the hip-op for granny, or the knee-op, or the cataract, because we've underfunded hospitals by $300 million in the next year. $300 million, as my colleague, the Honourable Ruth Dyson, so eloquently put it on the radio today. The health system is on life support, and somebody just turned off the switch. Somebody just turned off the switch. The health system is on life support. Who did that? Bill English and John Key. And every senior citizen in waiting lists for a hip-hop will remember this day, $300 million short, waiting lists growing longer, National shrinking the state out of pure ideology. But they also said, sir, that we would be rebalancing the economy, fixing the tax preference towards the binge-bust property cycle. And it hasn't happened. They tinkered with depreciation, they mingled around the edges with qualifying companies, but they haven't solved the problem. They have not offered a clear path forward for the economy that rebalances the tax system that has got out of whack. And they will be condemned by that in years ahead when Kiwi businesses, especially small businesses, Mr. Speaker, cannot borrow, cannot access the debt and equity finance that they need to grow, to create good jobs, to create high incomes, and to drive New Zealand forward in an ever more complex world. They said bottom line is that this government would create growth, that when you cut taxes for our best and brightest and mainstream New Zealand, please don't get jealous, we need those people, they're better than you, that we would get growth. Well, here is the budget's numbers on growth forecast. There's been no manipulation. This is a straight quote. What it shows, by the government's own calculation, in fiscal year 2012, growth goes down. In fiscal year 2013, growth goes down. And in fiscal year 2014, it goes up by less than 0.1%. That was the step change. After the high income tax cut, growth goes down 2 years out of 3 and hardly budges in the third. So put aside, New Zealanders, if you can, the fact that Granny gets the home help cut and has to wait for the hip-hop. Put aside the fact that you can't get a subsidy in the early childhood centre. Put aside the fact that the millionaire didn't need $1,000 a week. Judge the budget by if it delivers on the future for jobs and incomes and growth. And here's the proof. In Treasury's own numbers, it fails on its own objectives, on its own numbers. It's a waste of time. It was a waste of ink, Mr. Speaker. It shouldn't have been printed. It takes New Zealand backwards. It does not rebalance the economy. It is not socially just. It does not leave New Zealanders better off. And when the rosy glow of beehive spin wears off, New Zealanders will know that they've been swindled. They were promised step change. They didn't even get baby steps. They got a step back, Mr. Speaker, a step back in time to the failed policies of an old-fashioned National Party budget that rewards the rich at the expense of the poor, and the forgotten middle class is forgotten again. But this time, what is different, Mr. Speaker, this time, is that the middle class has been told not to be envious because the upper class deserves it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.